The following podcast is meant to inform and entertain. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the beliefs of others, experts, or anyone capable of thinking. Occasionally, we may go off topic or say something offensive. We're just a couple of humans trying to create better lives for our animals. Yours truly, The Bark. P.S. Please don't sue us.
This is The Bark, a pet podcast unleashed.
All right. Hi, Candy.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Hola.
Hola. Oh, I love Spanish. Fun fact. Thank you guys for joining us again. We are The Bark. We're presented by 501c3 out of Columbia, Tennessee, Lost Saving Paws. I'm just going to kind of jump right in. Last episode, we talked a lot about the laws and Lost Saving Paws. And if you liked what you heard and you've been liking what you've been hearing, my
Seeing,
grammar.
watching.
Yes.
If this content interests you, I mean, there's a lot of animal lovers who don't know what to do, don't know how to support. We are certainly in need of support.
It's an understatement.
Right. We are trying to, doing these things costs money. So we're trying to fund this podcast. And we're setting out to raise $14,000 in the next 14 weeks. That's $8,000 a week.
Yes. And so we are now on week 2.
Right.
So if, technically we should be raising $13,000 now, but we're on week 2.
Yes.
But like Candy said, $1,000 a week for the next 13 weeks now.
There you go.
And so we have a lot of different sponsorship opportunities on our website,
right?
lawsavingpaws.org/The Bark, one word, some creative ways for you to show your support. That includes businesses, people who want to impress their significant others.
Individuals. You can do it as a gift.
Love that.
When I got married, we were older and we were joining 2 households. We didn't need the Le Creuset and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So what we did for our wedding was we put up the foundations or the rescues that I had been working with. And we asked that donations be made to one of those.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. So if you're in that situation that Candy just described,
yes.
that is another good way to support us. If you've been enjoying any of the content and want to see it keep going, then please consider supporting us. So like we mentioned last episode, we talked a lot about the laws.
Yes.
Because everyone's like, laws
just
saving
put in
paws.
laws and it'll save everything.
Totally.
Yes.
Well, why did we think of that? I can wrap this up and call it a day.
Right. That's like saying, we'll put in a penalty for drunk driving. There won't be any more DUIs. Not.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
It doesn't really.
A law makes everything.
Yeah.
Totally makes everything better. But we also have to keep in mind we live in a place where, and listen, I value this. I moved from New Hampshire, live free or die, baby. So I can value a lot of like the fundamental freedoms that people have here.
Is that the state phrase?
Oh, it sure was.
Oh.
But it was a little ironic. It's kind of misleading because the longer I lived there, I was like, there's a lot of laws in a place called live free or die.
Oh.
But that was the motto.
Yeah.
The state motto.
The only thing I know of is Live Free or Die Hard, Bruce Willis. That's
great movie.
Yes.
Yeah. No.
I didn't realize that it was any of the states' little.
Oh, yeah. New Hampshire. New Hampshire. So, but they had laws, So, anyways, so that's just something that I think we're very mindful of.
Right.
We're not trying to come in and mandate all these things. We really want to approach it from like a compassionate, like, well, what's going on?
Yeah.
What's going on with people here? Let's understand their barriers and then figure out how to fix it.
I want to pause this a second. We are an animal-centered podcast. We do sometimes have pets in the studio. I don't know if anybody heard the drinking in the background a second ago, but
it was me.
Yeah. if you drink that loudly. But just if you hear weird sounds, just know that there are pets in the studio at times. So just a little FYI. We love our pets. We live our pets, right?
Yes. So thank you.
Yeah.
Bringing attention to that. Yes. Absolutely. So okay, our last episode was a little long, but there's so much to talk about.
Yes.
So I do not want to waste any time in getting into today's episode. And we kind of teased it a little last time, but we did not touch base at all about any of the animal cruelty stuff happening, which obviously we have laws in place to protect our animals from things like animal cruelty. And I will say animal cruelty is not limited to beating your dog, used it for fighting.
Right.
It's hoarding, it's abandonment. Those fall under
not giving proper care.
Yes.
Yes. Which, for some breeds, that's grooming. Some breeds, if you don't groom them, the hair becomes matted and you think, well, just somebody has messy hair. No, it's more than that. And it's actually painful to the dog.
Yeah.
So
and I just learned this because truthfully, my German Shepherd just had matted hair on his backside because he was just itching an area because he got bitten by a bug. And I'm petting him one day and it is just, I ripped a chunk out.
Yeah,
and someone explained to me that all the mats, they just start pulling on the skin.
Yes.
Right? Is that what causes the pain?
So think of having a tight ponytail.
Oh, it's the worst.
And then you let it loose. So I mean, at the end of the day, we take our ponytails out, right? And you have that a few moments of you're like, oh my gosh.
Man bun.
Man bun. Yes. Or whatever
Yeah.
hairstyle you've put up. And when you let it loose, you have that release and that it kind of hurts, but it's kind of a relief thing.
Yeah.
But imagine if that ponytail, man bun, whatever it was left in place for months.
Yeah.
And your skin is just pulled up and back and stretched for months. It's torture.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No. But anyways, I'm learning every day. I'm learning something, right? Like we've said it before, we don't know everything. We're just doing the best we can.
Yeah.
So, I want to start off with a story that I found. It happened in 2022, in Polk County, Georgia. So we often, not often, but we try to keep things local to Tennessee. But if we find an opportunity to pull something from another area, we sure will. So in 2022, DeVicio Roland was convicted of 107 counts of dogfighting and 107 counts of cruelty to animals. Yeah. And he served only 4 years in prison, even though he was sentenced to 50. Yeah. And I there's this quote from one of the people who adopted one of the dogs after he was rehabilitated. And he said, to see 107 dogs on car axles and chains and no food or water, it really opens your eyes. It's just horrifying. There's nothing to eat, chewing on sticks and rocks. And all this to be said, this guy was sentenced to 50 years in prison. And because of some other, I don't know how that works, time served and this and this.
Or an appeal.
4 years.
Yeah.
And that happens. I have not dug into this so much, but I have a feeling that this happens a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was in Georgia. And so we'll also talk about, let's talk about a little how animal cruelty and overpopulation are related, because I think the overpopulation, from what we've found, is it certainly fuels the animal cruelty.
Yes, it can. I remember a case a few years ago where there was somebody similar to this. There wasn't 107 dogs on the property, but there was, I want to say, about 50. And there was clearly dog fighting going on. Outside, there were kennels, there were dogs chained. I'll be honest, there were dog body parts and there were dead dogs on the property and everything. It was really horrifying. And then there were these back barn buildings, which I didn't go to the property. I saw photos. And then I was described that in one of those back barn buildings, we were trying to figure out what was going on. And the rescuer who was leading the situation, she said, Candy, why are there these back buildings? They have all this land. I don't understand why they have these back buildings. And then there was, very crudely, it's called a rape rack. And that's where you kind of put a female dog on it, and it kind of immobilizes the female. That way the male can easily breed with the female. And she was like, why are this back like shed thing, and it's bigger, and there were some more dead dogs in there.
Oh,
and I
boy.
said, the only thing that I can imagine is they're doing dog fighting because the neighbors could see into the yard. They're doing dog fighting in a confined space, and maybe because it wasn't big enough to have a crowd in there.
Yeah.
But maybe they're broadcasting it and getting paid online.
Didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that's the only thing.
Oh, the internet's so great.
I don't think that was ever confirmed. That was the only thing I could think of.
Yeah.
And he was breeding. So there were all these dogs outside, some alive, some dead, some very clearly aggressive because they were taught to be aggressive. And then inside the home was a dog and her puppy. So they're breeding to pay also for all their equipment and all feeding these dogs. So breeding goes in hand with other backyard breeding. I don't want to say all breeding. Backyard breeding can go hand in hand with other crimes. People who don't want to have a 9 to 5. And it was also this person who did all this, the man that lived on the property, was a felon. He was not supposed to have certain breeds of dogs.
You know what? That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
Because they're not being vetted, right? The people who are getting their hands on these dogs may be on the animal abuse registry.
Yes.
For instance,
Right.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
but
he was on parole. He was not supposed to have certain number of dogs, certain breed of dogs, and he had drug offenses.
Yep.
And even the rescuer mentioned that while going to the property and working on the property, he seemed to be somebody under the influence.
Yep.
So we think of it as just backyard breeding, but it can also be, can, not all the time, be attached to other more significant things.
Yes. And even if you're not, and we'll just very quickly remind you, full circle, even if you're not intentionally breeding in your backyard, right? Irresponsibly, you have an oopsie litter.
Sure.
And there's no room in the shelter and a dog is abandoned. Yeah. I mean, that dog could end up into the wrong hands.
There's people giving away or selling dogs on Craigslist.
Yes.
It's so sad.
And then on another episode, we should talk about why Craigslist is still a thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great.
All right.
No, that's an excellent point. But what we're just trying to emphasize is that it is all related.
Yes.
It's all stinking related.
When you have this overpopulation, it does make it easier to just get a dog from anywhere and nobody's watching. They're just like, oh yeah, there will be people who find a dog like, oh, I just need to find an owner, and they hand it off to somebody like, oh, it's going to have a happy life, not realizing you just handed off that dog to a dog fighting ring.
Right. Right. And, I think even a couple of weeks ago, I had seen someone and I don't engage a lot on Facebook, but from my personal account, I saw someone post something in a group, like may have even been in my church group or something. I don't remember, but they were giving away a dog. And I messaged them and said, hi, like, I think it's great that you want to help your friend find a home for this dog. Please charge X, Y, and Z.
Something.
Here's the reason why. And again, just like using those moments of opportunity for an opportunity to educate, because people don't know.
Right. And let's talk about that free trade of dogs and everything. Even if you're trying to help a dog, my number one recommendation is contact a shelter or rescue. There's a lot of shelters nowadays that they might not have room for the dog, but they'll let you foster while they post for an owner.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even rescues will do that as well. And what they also help you do is they'll help you vet the animal. I shouldn't say dog or cat. They'll help you vet them, and then they'll charge an amount. And what rescues do, I don't think shelters do this, but what rescues do is they do what's called a vet check.
Oh, okay.
They call the vet of the person wanting to adopt, because let's say I have an adopter who already has a dog or 2 dogs. I will call their vet and say, okay, Fifi and Fido, do they receive annual exams? Do they receive annual vaccinations? Are they microchipped? Well, microchip is not a requirement, but do they have their rabies vaccine? Are they on heartworm prevention? So are they spayed and neutered?
Yeah, it makes me think too, when I've rescued a dog in the past, I remember, and I've heard other people express the same frustrations where they're like, man, I filled out more paperwork to rescue this dog than to buy my house.
Right.
Right. And it's like, well, that's actually, it's a good thing because it's also not just serving you. This is helping the entire animal population issue.
Right. Right. And so a lot of rescues will not adopt out to dog owners who don't have that required care.
Yeah.
Why am I going to give you a dog that you're not going to take care of?
Right.
Oh, well, the vet is expensive. Owning a dog is expensive. It's a luxury, not a right.
Right.
You know?
And there are reasons those questions are in place.
Right. And so I would say not only do the rescues do that and the shelters, they both charge a fee. The rescues do the vet checks and everything. But the other thing that rescues and shelters do is they put the dogs on contract. Mm-hmm. So, you can't use a dog for dog fighting, So then if you are found doing something wrong, there's greater penalties because you've already been warned not to do that.
Ooh, okay.
And what rescues will do is in their contract, it says, if you ever have to rehome this dog in the future, you contact us and we will take the dog back or we'll help you find it another home. Or if it's having a behavior issue, maybe we help you find training resources. They're there to support you through the lifetime of that pet.
Right. And I will say though, I think the intentions are good. I do wonder if there's just a lack of resources, and we've talked about this, to follow through on some of that. Like, do we know if that dog, and you can only do so much, right? But do you know if that person still has the dog? I mean, do you know something? Do you know what I mean? They may have that in a contract, but where is the follow through on making sure?
And that's also why rescues microchip.
Yes. That's a really good point.
Yes. We have found dogs that were dumped.
Yeah.
And we're like, why? And there's a rescue I work with. This happened a few months ago. The dog was dumped and the rescue didn't just say, oh man, you dumped the dog and that was it. They called that adopter.
Good.
And said they had notified the rescue that the dog was acting funny and they think that the dog was having a neurological issue. Mm-hmm. They're going to take it to the vet. Yeah. But they think that the dog is going to have to be put down. So the rescue said, okay, keep us informed. We're so sorry this is happening. Mm-hmm. Next thing we know, we're getting a call that the dog was dumped. We talked about this situation a few episodes ago. The dog was dumped, about half hour away or whatnot. And we were notified because the rescue is on the microchip.
Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't even think of that.
Right.
That part of it.
And the rescue got the dog back. The dog has been acting perfectly. Yep. Oh, actually, the people who found the dog fell in love with the dog. The dog was acting perfectly fine all this time. But the rescue called that owner and said, are you kidding me? Yep. We offer you support. In your contract, it says that we offer you support. We will take the dog back. We'll find it another home. And you dump it?
Yeah. Well, and all of that to say, it's all of these things are in place, for reasons. And you'll just see how all these dots are connected, how, maybe even potentially dumping that dog could have been picked up and used for something.
Fighting,
for something else. So I do want to say, though, for all of the crappy things that are happening, there is some good news I read about recently. And they say beliefs are shifting in some southern areas. For example, Gallatin. And Gallatin is just, I don't know what direction. Is it east of Nashville?
North. It's
west, north. Okay, great.
North and I think a little bit west.
Great. So northwest, it's a little bit more of a rural area.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
It's budding up. Yeah. Okay. It's a beautiful area. Yeah, it's budding up.
Okay, but I do know I know we've got some supporters who live out in Gallatin. And I forgot to shout out these people. I just, we didn't do a little shout out at the beginning of this, but thank you, Mark I, and I think his wife's name was Maggie, for also your contribution.
Yes, I remember
in helping this. Yes. So thank you. Wonderful they people. Live in Gallatin. Yeah. And they brought it to our attention, like that they also have a really big stray and roaming animal problem.
Gallatin is northeast of Nashville.
Okay.
Sorry.
Great. Yeah. Northeast. Thank you. And so, like I said, Gallatin is cracking down on this, and it sounds like they're having a shift of beliefs. And they said, authorities are supposed to take action, but there are still some good old boys or municipalities who see animals as property.
Right.
But there's definitely a new awareness, and we celebrate the small victories, right? Even a new awareness is better than no movement at all.
Yeah.
So, and I think the person who said that, his name was Michael Cunningham. He's with the organization called ARC. ARC
Yes.
Animal Rescue Corps.
Yes. It's a great group.
Yeah. And so it sounds like, and Candy, we'll talk about this a little bit, but I want to talk about ARC for a second. But I want to give you an opportunity to talk about how Gallatin may be cracking down and maybe their perseverance to escalate things.
Sure.
Yeah. So we'll go to that. But I do just want to say really quickly too. So in Louisiana, just talk about ARC for a second. I guess there was an owner who was charged with, there was a case that ARC was recently involved in, and they helped save a bunch of dogs from a bad situation.
Right.
The owner was charged with 33 felony counts of animal abuse and 3 counts of child neglect and abuse.
These things tend to be connected. I was contacted about...
Not tend. There's literally something called the link.
Okay.
There have been studies since the 70s.
Well,
that link.
And we're learning more about domestic abuse, and we're learning that violence toward animals is also a sign of violence toward people.
And not always.
Yeah.
We are not saying we are not saying one is always happening with the other,
right.
but it's like I said, it's a link. And like Candy said, mistreating animals, it's no longer seen as an isolated incident, but it's a red flag that other people in that household may not be safe.
You even have serial killers who, when they were younger, once they uncover everything that's happening, you find out Jeffrey Dahmer got into...
He was killing animals.
He was, and his parents, his father turned it into thought it was more like a hobby, like taxidermy kind of thing.
Yep.
And kind of explored it with and tried to turn it into something healthy, I think.
And we're not saying everyone who does that eats people.
Right.
Let's be clear.
Especially boys are curious about nature, and there's hunting, and you have to dress whatever you hunt. We're not saying that, but there can be some links along the way. And it's also like how you do it. The intention, I'm not a vegetarian. I eat meat, but I'm not pro torturing any animal that is then turned into a consumable good. So it's a lot about how things are done respectfully of the person and the animal and everybody involved.
But it's something not to slide. I mean, those flags exist. Like these flags don't come out of thin air.
Right.
And I will say, I won't talk a lot about this, but I come from a home where that happened. My dad was not nice to our dogs and to our dog at that time. And there was some other violence happening in the home. And it's only now that I look at
the link,
the pattern. The link. And I'm like, holy crap. Like it's just interesting. You kind of have that aha moment. And it's, it also reminded me during COVID when kids weren't going to school, the number of abuse and neglect cases were down significantly because it is in schools where teachers and administrators were recognizing the signs that someone was being abused at home or that something was going on at home. And because they were not in school, they could not, they didn't have visibility into that.
Right.
And it's very, very similar. So that's why it's important to not even... truthfully, we love our animals and protecting them. And that's what these laws are in place for. But we have to understand that a lot of these times, these animal cruelty cases are indicative of something else happening. So even if you care about humans in general, use that as a warning sign. I mean, these are a gateway.
If you see somebody being, kind of mean to somebody else, maybe they have a bad day, things happen. But if you see them where they're watching their behavior, but you can tell that the things that they're saying, or there's other indicators.
It's a pattern. It's the frequency. Like I was, I'll be totally transparent. I was just having a conversation with our producer a little bit ago about how last week, I was screaming at my dogs because they were, oh my Lord in heaven. I've got 3 of them and they were on one side of the fence and there was a dog on the other side of the fence. And they don't normally get fence aggressive. But I didn't recognize this other dog, and it was a guest in town. And I just thought, I don't want anything to happen.
Right.
And my dogs weren't listening to me.
Right.
I was screaming my head off. And I was like, oh my gosh, these people are going to think I abuse my animals. I represent Lost Saving Paws. How does this, I was just like, oh man, what's the narrative going to be? But my mom kind of talked me off the ledge, to be honest. And she's like, honey, you don't always do that. It just means you're a human. I was like,
we have bad days.
We have bad days.
So, but that's what I'm saying is if you see somebody who you can tell in turn, they are really grinding on the other people around them and really being mean. Maybe they're not physical, but then you see them get physical with a pet.
Yes.
Check on your friend.
It's a vulnerable being. My mom and I talked about this yesterday, in fact, and there is something that, domestic violence in those situations often occur because the person, the abuser, is looking for something vulnerable to take that out on.
Right.
Animals are vulnerable. Children are vulnerable. A lot of spouses are in a vulnerable state if they're in an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
So anyways, all this being said, it's critical that we enforce and report and do what we can to reduce the animal overpopulation, because it absolutely contributes to animal cruelty, which we've just talked about can be linked to other things. It can be insight into other things happening in a home.
Right, right.
So it's not isolated.
So I'm going to bring up a program that I have not personally worked with. I've heard of it. I think a lot of people know who Mariska Hargitay is from Law and Order.
Dun, dun.
Yes, you got it. She is part of the she's part of the Purple Leash Project. So, and what the reason that what she's trying to do is she learned that almost 50% of domestic violence survivors delayed leaving their abuser because they didn't want to leave their pet behind. And that's dangerous. When you're trying to leave an abuser, it's so dangerous trying to get away.
Yeah.
And how are you going to leave that? I mean, that's your baby.
Yeah.
So what the Purple Leash Project does is it makes it so that shelters have space to hold dogs temporarily. So that their families can seek help. If you go to a shelter or something where you can't take your pet.
I love that. Well, because my first thought when you said that was, oh gosh, what happens when shelters or rescues are full? And honestly, I know someone who was in a situation like that, and she took the dog and lived in her car.
Yeah. I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this does two things. I think that they try to find space in shelters, or what they do is they work to make domestic violence shelters pet friendly. So the family, including the pet, can stay together.
Yes.
So
yes. But I love that people are recognizing the relationship between the two.
Right.
I love it because it brings in, again, we are not just an organization and a podcast who are like, let's just rally all the animal lovers.
Right.
Because it's not just about the animal lovers.
Yeah.
It's about everyone. And I feel so passionately about that.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk about maybe the enforcement or lack thereof of some of the laws that exist, especially when it comes to our animals. And I had a conversation recently with an animal attorney up in the Nashville area, and I can't wait for her to be on the show. We talked about barriers creating the lack of enforcement, and she had a lot of insight because she personally handles a lot of these cases, and she said that there's very little incentive to prosecute a case like this, and that's because the fines are so small that the DA doesn't want to take a case.
It's not worth their day.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, there are a lack of resources in the judicial, system. I don't know, in that system. Yeah. So for instance, they have little staffing and less money. And even that is part of the reason too. I think whatever county, or I can't remember who she was working with though, I said, why isn't all of this stuff about this abuser or this person online publicly for people to see? And she said it's because this area does not have the resources to digitize the information. So it's all on books, it's in files. like in person.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. So there's no visibility into the abuse stuff. And I do wonder if that's part of the reason why the abuse registry too maybe isn't as
Kept
robust.
Up. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but it was interesting to hear her speak to some of that and that's why, we were kind of going back and forth, and it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Right.
Like, do you think
there's only so many DAs. Are we going to prosecute a $100 fine for animal abuse, or are we going to prosecute like a rape?
Right. And so I think, I think a part of me thinks that we have the laws and you have to, I kind of go back and forth, but this is where the fines, like the punishments need to be stronger.
Right. And I think we need to start, I think we understand it now mentally, but it's not reflected in our laws just yet, that these low level types of abuse escalate.
Yes.
So hopefully you catch them earlier and stop the domestic, and the domestic violences. We increase programs. There's a lot of feminicide nowadays. So if you can stop somebody from being a domestic, I see your face. So feminicide is.
Did it look like I had no idea what that word was?
So
great.
Think feminine and homicide. So it's men killing women in like when you feminicide. It's a worldwide.
I have never
heard that term.
Heard of that.
Yeah. So
wow.
A lot of if you watch crime shows like I do,
like Jeffrey Dahmer docuseries.
Yes, right. Didn't catch that one. No. So if you watch some of these shows, yes, there's a couple doesn't get along and the husband kills the wife or the wife kills
every
the husband.
Lifetime movie ever. But go ahead.
Well, and then you have more along the feminicide is where you have a couple where the husband is all out just abusive, and she wants to get away, but he doesn't. I don't know. It confuses me because I'm like, you clearly don't like her.
Yeah.
But then you won't let her get away.
Well, it's a mental health issue. But anyways.
Yes. Until it escalates to the point that the husband or the boyfriend stalks or, just comes in and beats, rapes, whatever, until it escalates to a homicide. But there's a difference between the, I wanted my husband's life insurance or I wanted my wife's life insurance versus this constant, consistent abuse, control, escalation to murder. So that's the feminicide.
Right.
Yeah.
And okay, just really quickly, I'm wondering what do you call it when the woman does that?
I think
Menenicide.
Yeah. I think you said it a second ago, it's a mental health thing. And I don't know if that mental health thing is sometimes these mental health issues are driven by hormones or things like, chemical imbalances. And I think that women just don't have the desire to. There are a lot of.
Have you seen the Jodi Arias?
Oh, but how rare is that?
It's true.
So I think the reason it got coined for women is because there's so much of it.
Yeah.
And I think partially because, especially in the past, like again, we're getting smarter about it. But in the past, it was like, well, the man's the head of the household. If he says do this, do that, and well, she got a black eye because she didn't do the thing. Like that used to be the mentality, and we're getting smarter about it. But it used to be that men could get away with these things. I am getting a little off track.
Yeah,
here.
we're going down this like feminist path real fast.
But I'm just trying to say that if we stop these things while they're small potatoes, if we get that woman away from the man, if we get that man some help, and going the other way too. If a woman kills a pet to get back at a boyfriend, husband, whatever, if we stop it early.
Yeah. Women slash tires. I've heard listen, I've heard, have you heard the Carrie Underwood song? I mean, before he cheats.
Yes.
I'm like, God, Carrie.
Yeah.
I know it's not a biography, but
she's like, I'm putting it on the map,
But anywho,
I know that
but you're
song?
right.
Yeah.
Again, like it is indicative of something bigger that is probably just being perpetuated.
Yes. But we've got to get smart because it's also the 80-20 rule. 20% of the people, do 80% of the damage, right?
Yeah.
So if we can stop that 20%, and we live in an imperfect world. There's always going to be crime. There's always going to be X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
We are in the information age. We are getting smarter about these things, and we're having the public get more involved in finding and helping and funding solutions.
Right. And we're all about reversing. Like, we know it's like you just said, we're in a fallen world. Like, there's always going to be bad stuff happening. Right. There just is. But it's about reversing it.
Right.
Let's let's just reverse it. We'll never be rid of it 100%.
Right.
It's just a
But
fact.
let's identify it earlier.
Yes.
Let's stop domestic violence when somebody's kicking the dog, not when they are beating the children. Right.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we spent time on that because
it goes hand in hand.
It does. And again, it's just, it's not just limited to us finding homes for animals and this. I think it's such a bigger thing that people need to talk about. So now that we kind of know, the damage of the animal cruelty and things like that, I'd love to talk about some of the signs of it.
Yeah.
Candy, do you want to, I don't know. I think
Take us through. So if you have a dog that's like howling or barking for a long time, it's like this alarm bark. Something's probably wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if you make an excuse, if you're okay with your neighbor and you feel safe, go over and like, hey, your dog, can I walk your dog for you? Is there something wrong? Are you sick? Like, I can walk your dog. Do you need help? Is he injured?
And the approach, it's all in the approach.
It's about the approach.
All in the approach.
We talked about it, the matted fur earlier and how that feels, what that means. So looking out for things like that. Wounds, unusual scars, like a lot of the dogs that we see, I shouldn't say a lot, but some of them that we see, you see these little marks. And sometimes marks can be, sometimes I see them on the puppies that I foster because they wrestle and they wrestle and they wrestle.
That's a great point, though. I think I have seen, like, even on social media, people are quick to point the abuse finger, which, and I'm like, well, that dog's not starving. You can see that. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm not a professional.
I think, here's the difference. When puppies get it, they'll get like little nicks and everything, but it's not all over. It's not usually on the sides. It's more so on the face.
Okay.
And they're not deep enough to where they'll scar, and usually the puppies grow out of it, Okay. Oh, in adults, you will see those marks on the sides, on the face, everywhere. And they are not from playing. They're not recent wounds that are healing. Sometimes they could be recent wounds. But you will also see long-term scarring, just like in human abuse. I can break my arm, but if I go into the doctor and the doctor sees like 3 other breaks, what's going on here?
Yeah,
Right. So a lot of scarring, signs of improper nutrition, like emaciation. If you can see the dog's ribs coming through, if they're just like hunched, that can also happen. Animals kept caged or tied with little room. So we talked about this in the previous episode. When we put dogs on a chain, it gives them a clear delineation of what they can reach. Mm-hmm. And when they see that delineation, it then becomes, this is my space. So then they can become aggressive because they're defending that space. Yeah. Okay. So, kept in a cage or tied with little room to move. So you'll see scarring around the ankles. Cage, they're matted, not just matted, but matted in their feces. They smell like urine, things like that. And sometimes we might think of it like as we age or we have our health concerns, sometimes it's just that your neighbor needs a helping hand.
Right.
And that could also be an excuse to ask, hey, is everything okay?
Right.
When you're trying to figure out, is my neighbor really abusing these dogs? You can go in there from that aspect and say, is everything okay? Mm-hmm. And then as you come in, if you see other things going on, people will use shock collars to abuse it. You're talking about being upset. I've heard of stories. My dog came from a situation where the owner would get ticked off and just lean in on that shock collar.
So not for training. They would just be angry.
I'm angry and I'm going to press the button that I know is going to hurt you. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So you can look for scarring there.
I hate that too because that, again, that creates like
Yeah.
a whole nother perception of something. People misuse something,
Right.
and then
Right.
but we won't go down that.
You can have lack of protection from the weather, or like people who are just, I don't understand the idea of getting a dog just to put on a chain or just to leave it in the backyard, other than if it's a working dog, like a Great Pyrenees or a Border Collie or something like that. But otherwise, why just leave it in the backyard? And sometimes when people are not caring for their pets, you'll see other signs like their property is just messy and funky, and
Right.
so there's this you have to see the big picture.
Yes. Yes.
Is the dog look like it's being fed, but maybe it's not being fed dog food? Maybe it's just eating things in the backyard. Dogs will eat rocks.
Oh, that's a really great point.
Yeah. Dogs will eat
Yep.
rocks when they have nothing
Yeah.
else to eat. They will eat rocks just to put something in their belly.
Yeah.
Okay. Collars, leashes, halters, chains being embedded into the animal's skin.
Yeah.
They don't get really, you'll see dogs on a chain and they get wrapped around something and the owners don't come out to free it. It could be wrapped like that for days, for weeks and everything.
Right.
And you'll see those scars on the legs, the collar, things like that, around their body.
Right.
A large number of animals coming or going to the property. So it could be a signal of dog fighting. It could be a signal of breeding and selling and things like that. Yeah. Going back to the chains, sometimes people will put these really heavy chains on a poor dog, and it's like the dog can't even lift their head or anything. And then also fear of people in general. Like if you see a dog that comes back, some dogs are just inherently shy.
Right.
They weren't properly socialized, but sometimes dogs will take off like crazy, or they'll shake, they'll become aggressive. I have a dog that I'm fostering right now that when she first came into my home, I took her outside to bathe her and she pooped all over the place just from me touching her.
Yeah.
She was just shaking and so scared that she just, I'm glad we were washing her
Released.
outside.
Yeah.
And her name is Winnie Pooh. The vet calls her Winnie Poop. Because also when we go in for any type of exams or injuries or anything like that, she poops.
Yeah.
So she was not properly socialized when she was a puppy. And so she's afraid of people. She's coming out of it. She's doing great. She's available for adoption. But she's a sweetheart. But she's getting there and she's wonderful. But those are some of the signs that dogs have not been properly socialized. And I know we don't think of socialization as or a lack thereof as abuse, but think if you never sent a kid to school, if you never let a kid out of the house to...
Okay, because I know, listen, I'm an advocate for homeschooling.
Okay, well, but I consider
but
homeschool...
those kids are getting socialization elsewhere.
I consider homeschool school because those kids, my sister homeschooled her kids and they have their own programs. They're not going to public school or private school, but they have their own programs. I'm talking about, there was a story a few years ago of this family that never let their kids out of the house. And they had kids from like age 19 down to a few years old. And one of the girls finally broke out of the house and went and got help.
I wonder if they were abusing an animal.
Right. I don't think they had any animals in the house, but I think lack of socialization can kind of be a form of abuse.
It can plant a seed too. It can that will grow. Right. And as that dog gets older, maybe
it can set up the dog for failure because let's say you ever have to rehome that dog or you move to a different setup or whatnot. And the dog can't adjust. They could become aggressive or they could already be aggressive because they're not socialized.
Yes.
And it can cause other issues, but
Yeah. And so it's important to, again, like understand, you may recognize some of these things and then you go over and you have a conversation with your neighbor about it. And, who's going to take care of it if all the shelters and rescues are full? Is there an animal control officer able to respond to it?
If a dog like that goes into the system, there's some shelters that are equipped to rehab and there's a lot that are not.
Yeah. Yeah. So it goes to too many, more animals than we have resources to help. Yeah, absolutely. So Candy, I want to quickly go back so again, if we recognize that all these things are happening and we talked about Gallatin earlier, maybe hopefully inspiring some change in that area. And escalating. But what kind of escalation is appropriate, Candy?
We don't want to we want to avoid the whole pitchforks, like, going after an agency like the police or hey, you're not responding. We have to respond with kindness. If you can approach your neighbor kindly, maybe open that discussion. I've had conversations with people where I had somebody try to adopt a dog the other day and they said, well, I work 12-hour shifts. Will the dog be fine in a crate for 12 hours? Like, no.
And that's an honest answer.
That's way too long, not just mentally, emotionally, but also on the bladder. And he's like, well, I'm like, well, we don't want the dog to get UTIs, for example. He's like, well, so they won't be able to hold it. I'm like, sir, imagine yourself holding your bladder for 12 hours, that during your work shift, you are not allowed to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? So approach, and he was like, yeah, I hear you, and he went and asked his neighbor, like, hey, when I'm at work, would you be able to let my dog out?
Right.
Simple solutions, but it's the approach.
Yep.
It's the approach. So I would say, talk to your neighbors, talk kindly to potential adopters. Also, who to call? Animal control.
Yeah.
If you're not getting an answer, yes, you can have other people call. Like, I'm a neighbor of a situation that's happening, I'm going to call.
Yeah.
If I have another neighbor who's concerned, I will encourage them to call, but I will encourage them to call nicely, kindly. Watch what you say. Watch what you say. State the facts.
Right.
Just don't be overly emotional.
And if you're writing an email or putting, well, I would not put anything on social media.
Yes.
But please avoid the exclamation points in capital letters.
Yes, or the cuss words, or the this, or that, because
the name calling.
You want to combat. You want to portray information without the person who's helping you thinking that you're being overly dramatic.
Well, that's the thing. It does a disservice to the message because it makes it seem like you're just being dramatic, and what they need to know are the facts. Yes,
this is happening. My neighbor is. I hear him beating the dog. I see him walking around with a stick in his backyard, and then he goes around the corner, and I can hear the dog screaming, and I can hear that this is happening.
Right.
I don't know all the laws, but you're not allowed to take video. Like, if we were neighbors, I could not put a video camera to film intentionally inside your backyard. That's an invasion of your privacy.
Oh, because,
But if my security cameras are placed to watch my home and it captures what's going on in your backyard. I had a situation where dogs were locked in a home, and the neighbors' security system were able to verify that nobody was coming and going to the home for over a week.
Wow.
And so, that's one way that might help. So call animal control. If animal control is not answering, escalate it. Call the non-emergency police, unless it is an emergency. Call the non-emergency police. Let them know. If they don't respond, you call, hey, I called about this. Why are you not responding? And they might tell you that same situation. They did not go to that home based on the neighbor's security cameras because they said, well, we have to see signs of abandonment.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, what's a sign of they're like, oh, mail stacked up, newspaper stacked up. I'm like, who subscribes to a newspaper nowadays? That gets thrown on your lawn. So call and find out. And if they're not responsive, you keep escalating to your local mayor, your local commissioner. And look, you can email them at the same time. You can email the chief of police, copying your commissioner and copying your mayor and saying, listen, I'm not getting responses. I know there's an issue. I really need your help. And if I don't get an answer, I'm not going to have a choice but to go beyond you as well.
Right.
Right.
So, which I know a lot of people don't, I know a fear of retaliation is a big thing. We've gotten that feedback.
I've heard lots of stories of people who won't help, and even police who won't help because the situation is happening at a home of somebody who has shown violence and is a drug user, abuser, and even maybe a seller. So, and the police just like, we're not going over there. Sorry about the dog, and that sucks.
It does. It does. And that's like a whole nother.
Yes.
Yeah. But I will say, so, escalate. And, I'm so glad, Candy, thank you so much. Because I know you have so much knowledge into that. And it seems like firsthand experience.
And I will also say, take notes. What day, what time.
And that's part of the fact.
Yes.
They're going to ask you for a log.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, they won't necessarily ask you, but it will be helpful.
Absolutely.
If you are saying that dog had no food and water, if you didn't see your neighbor for 2 days,
right.
That's 2 days of no food and water,
Right. And that's part of the facts.
Yes.
You can't deny, and that's not an opinion. From this hour to this hour,
Right.
there was no one who entered or left that house.
Right. Exactly.
And, so I will say, I know a lot of people ask us, well, and again, I'm so happy you lent such insight into that, because people are like, we have these problems. We've been asked, what do we do?
Right.
And I want to reemphasize, that's redundant. I want to emphasize that what we're doing, I think the educational part of it and what we're doing here and with this podcast and with our educational initiatives we want to help, we want to empower you to understand what to do. It's not about like us coming in on a white horse, because we're trying to figure it out too, to be honest.
And the people who are able to take action, they need boots on the ground, and that's all of us.
Yes, 100%. So if you believe in what we're doing and the educational part of it, if you found any of that beneficial and you believe in again, what we're doing, please, we'll keep listening.
Advocate.
Tell people about us. Advocate. Share the information. If you want to hear this podcast continue, which, gosh, we want to.
Yes.
Visit lawsavingpaws.org/thebark, and there are a lot of really awesome sponsorship opportunities.
Yes.
If you follow us on social media as well, we've got some events that pop up from here and there, and we've got an online store. So there are a lot of different ways to support us, because, I wish we didn't need money to spread our mission. But the truth of the matter is, we do. It costs money just to get to increase awareness,
to make this show, to increase awareness. We
100%.
attend events, and sometimes there's a fee to attend those events.
Yep.
So this takes a lot of work. So we're looking for your support. We appreciate your support.
Yes, 100%. So thank you guys so much, and we hope to catch you next time.